Hey, I just want to thank you so much for just jumping on this short presentation just to learn a little bit about what I have been doing in the telecom industry on how to improve sales meetings and proposal closing. So you probably got an email from me or some kind of communication. I thought this is the best way not to waste your time or waste my time to talk about here's what I'm doing. And if you have an interest level after this presentation, let's get together and just talk about and have a conversation about what you're doing, what I'm doing, and to see if it makes sense to move forward or anything I can help you with. Anyway, but my name is Stepp Sydnor, and I have been called the telecom industry's best authority on how to have a sales meeting, that initial sales meeting on the enterprise level. This is for meetings, not the fast transaction telecom sales, but those that are going, middle market, the major markets, and upwards. So I've myself have sold, spent 20 years at an enterprise level company selling large accounts. 16 years ago, after transitioning to another career, I was asked when I was sitting down at a cable internet company that was entering into the B2B world from the residential world as the first cable company to do that. And I was asked to develop their curriculum and their sales material and their sales management material. And this kicked off a 16, 17-year career working in this particular industry as well as other industries. And you can see down there, we have a lot of major companies in the telecom industry that I've worked with, and as well as other industries as financial and manufacturing and medical. And I've developed what's considered the best-in-class methodology for enterprise sales executives on how to speak at the executive level. And it has been a perfect fit for the telecommunication industry as people are moving up in their careers and they're selling to a larger audience or higher up the corporate ladder. And it creates a process for account executives and their sales engineers on what's the engagement model look like when they do these meetings. So here's the challenge and the three questions that we kind of ask ourselves a lot as we're trying to move our market upwards and expand our market share. The first one is, how do I get prospects to convince themselves that they need our product and service? Not how do we convince them, but how do we have a conversation that gets the client, first of all, interested in what we have to say. Because, a lot of initial sales meetings, when I've been on them, and I've done thousands of hours with account executives like yours in these meetings, not just writing curriculum and training, but studying the dialogue and the conversation that's happening between the best of the best and the worst of the worst. And then how do you put that in a training program that is easy to understand, easy to duplicate? So the questions we ask is, how do we convince clients to convince themselves? That's the first question. The second question is, how do you get prospects to do something different? A lot of clients don't want to do anything different. They really don't want to meet with a salesperson. But because of our tenacity and our pushing through, we somehow, get in there and we book a meeting. And it's typically at the IT level, isn't it? But we would like for them to meet at a different higher level. I'll talk to you a little bit about why reps aren't calling at a higher level as opposed to just the IT level. But, getting prospects to do something different that they're currently doing is a challenge. And here's the other one. How do I get them to switch vendors? How do I get them to unseat from my current vendor to somebody else? And these are the challenges. Here's some observations that I've seen spending hours in the field with telecommunications people at this level. The first thing that I notice is they place a lot more weight on the prospect's time and not enough weight or value on their own time. So what that means is that the account executives is in a hurry, and when they're in a hurry, guess what they do? They just miss key questions. They don't finish the discovery model. Or in the discovery model, because it's not processed and they don't have a certain way to deliver certain questions at the right time in the right place, they just go in winging different questions, whatever pops in the top of their head. But the main point is that they're in a hurry, and this is one of the reasons why. The second point is that these account executives just assume that because the prospect accepted an appointment that the prospect has a problem. You know what? And that's not necessarily true. But the point that I'm trying to make here is that because they have this perception, whatever they're perceiving is going to happen in the meeting, actually they act out. And so they perceive that the reason that you said yes to meet is because you had a problem. They're focusing on what we train our salespeople to find the pain. Now, I'm going to make a statement that may shock you a little bit, but we have been training salespeople to discover the pain points for so long that that's causing a problem with our audience. The reason is that from industry studies like Gallup and Serious Solutions, we know that 30% of the market knows they have a problem, or they know something's broke, or they know they have a pain point. They're cognitive of that. 70% of the buyers in the marketplace buy something because of a benefit that they don't have. Now that is significantly should change, or of interest to me, and it should change or consider changing our strategy and how we go to market. And I'll prove that out in just a little bit. But going after a market and looking for people that have pain points does two things that create a problem. First of all, the clients that you're meeting with, the last rep that they said, probably the last 10 people that they said, all want to talk about their pain points. Well, what if I don't feel like I have a pain point? Well, the conversation's not going to go anywhere. And it's such a needle in the haystack, that 30% market, that why don't I change my strategy and start having a conversation looking for what the client's currently doing and how they could do it better and how we could fit in, and it's revealing a benefit for them. And having the right conversation so that if there was a pain point there, it would just magically show up. So, but this creates a problem when our account reps are actually doing a meeting and they have that perception. The third thing is that reps, when you ask them, hey, how come you don't call higher? How come you just call in on the IT person? Why don't you call on these top executives? In fact, why don't you call on not only the IT boss, but why don't you call on the CEO of the company or something like this? And you find that a lot of reps will say, yes, sir, they'll march off, and then they come back, but they're still not doing that. And here's the reason. The main reason is they don't know what to say. Now, if you had a conversation with a top-level executive, and that conversation was short and didn't go very well, or you got brushed off, and you're asking me to go sit down with the same level of people, but I keep having a bad experience, or not a favorable experience, I'm going to avoid doing that. It's like putting my hand on the stove, getting it burnt, and it hurt, and then you're asking me to go do it again. I may nod my head and say yes, but the fact is, when you look at who they're calling on, it may not play out to be true. And why is that? Well, the number one reason is they don't know what to say. So the solution is teach them what to say. So here's a couple other observations that I want to run by you. The account executives attempt to accomplish or execute a meeting without sufficient preparation or experience, and they just wing it on the spot. You've heard the saying, just show up and throw up, or just wing it. Well, here's what's happening. They're not walking in with a defined structure for the meeting, of how the meeting starts. I know I know how I start. I know how I'm going to get engagement in 6 minutes. I know how I'm going to make that person thirsty and very glad that they're sitting down with me. And then the next 20 or 30 minutes, the conversation is going to be all about them. And I have specific questions that open up the dialogue. And as I move through those questions, I end up getting to the more challenging questions, which make sense for them to answer. And then I know how to end the meeting. And guess what? The sales engineer that's with me knows when to engage and knows when to disengage and give the meeting back to me so that I can actually wrap it up, close, and move to the next step. Because they don't have that, this is what happens. It's also because they don't have a structure for that. The sales engineer doesn't know when they should engage. Sales engineers are a key part. They're the ones that carry a lot of credibility, right? Some sales engineers are pretty dominant and very confident. And if they go out with a particular salesperson and they perceive that the salesperson doesn't know what they're doing, then they're going to take over the call. And sales engineers actually since they don't know what they're doing, then they just do anything. And sometimes the sale goes well, but most of the time, part of that 80% of sales meetings that fail to get results, they don't realize that because you're jumping in and taking over the meeting, it's really not doing the account executive any good, and it's really not doing the company any good. But there is a part that they should leverage their experience. And in a process or a product that I developed, I'll show you what that looks like. They also have a preconceived notion for the sale. You know, this is huge. They go in there already making a decision who can buy and who can't buy. And this costs them not only a lot of time and money, but it leaves a lot of money on the table, because then they go back in with their lowest package, not their highest package, with the confidence and the power to make that recommendation. So you also have the lack of structure. You have account reps that talk way too much about themselves, and they don't know how to ask the right questions. And then you have sales engineers that are pretty much unsure when to leverage their expertise, and so because they don't really know that, they just kind of jump in whenever they feel they need to. So this can create a real problem. So, you know, as we move our markets upwards, here's some of the challenges that I want to run by you. First of all, you see a number 80%, 60%, and 53%. So I want to start with the first one. Our industry studies indicate that 80% of initial meetings fail to produce real results. And that means that we probably had a really good professional visit, but as we're meeting with people, we're really not creating demand. We're just going around looking for pain points to pick up orders. And this is why a large percentage of our meetings fail to produce any results. So that's the 80%. The other number is 60%, and it's relative to proposals and closings. That's 60% of proposals that are generated actually fall into a dark hole, or they don't, it's hard to get back in there, or the client, their behavior was they said yes to a proposal, but their behavior is they really meant no because they're not doing anything with it, and there's a reason for that. And for some companies, the proposal generation, the number of proposals going out versus the number of proposals getting closed, is really more like the 70-30%, or maybe yours is higher, or maybe it's lower than this. If it's lower, that's fantastic, but it could be higher. This last number is pretty much the good news number. And for that enterprise account executive, when people make a decision to buy, 53% of that decision is weighed on our account reps. Now that is significant. That means that they are 53%, over 50% of the decision is weighed on them. And I think the study indicates 19% is brand, the other 19% is product or technology used, and 9% is just the price. But 53%. So you know what this means? If we were to improve the competency of the reps and the perception they're given in front of these initial meetings, it's going to change this 80% and the 60%. So what is creating this challenge in today's market? Well, why don't prospects see a difference? And how come they don't hear our message? In fact, we can't even get to the point where we want them to listen to our message and our products and services and our new things that we're rolling out. And why is that? We can't even get past the first part before they shoo us out the door. Well, I have two illustrations that kind of make sense. First of them is the donkey and the hay on the left and the grocery store on the right. So the donkey and the hay, this is a really good illustration. I love this. I wish I made it up, but honestly, I didn't, but it really proves a really good point. Feel free to use this too if your sales talks and stuff like this, because it really makes a lot of sense. But so the theory goes like this. If you take a donkey and you put this donkey in the field, and you put one bale of hay in front of the donkey, if the donkey's hungry, it's going to know where to go eat. It doesn't have to analyze. It just is going to go to that bale of hay and eat. However, if you take two identical bales of hay, put them next to each other about 5 feet apart, take the donkey, put them in the middle, like you see in the picture there, this donkey's going to analyze which bale of hay to go to, and even though it's hungry, it'll walk away. Now that's interesting, isn't it? So what's happening to the donkey? Well, what's happening is that there's not a difference between hay bale number 1, hay bale number 2. So the client has to overanalyze, who do I need to go with? And because they don't see a difference, they just decide not to buy. They decide not to proceed. And the only differentiating factor for clients today between two competitors is the price, because that's what we've taught them. That's why when you bring your proposal in, the first thing they want to see is the price. We've kind of conditioned them that way. You're conditioned that way. So what's the solution here? You're hay bale number 1, your competitor is hay bale number 2. And if they're already under contract, they're looking at the incumbent and they're looking at you and they're going, okay, I don't see what the difference is here. and your salespeople are going in there trying to convince them, as opposed there's a different way of having this conversation so that clients convince themselves that they need to go with hay bale number one, which is you or your company. So the strategy, make your hay bale bigger. When in the first meeting, you got to change this perception so that when you leave, you actually have perceived a much larger hay bale. Now look at the picture on the right, which is the grocery store. Now, all of us have visited a grocery store, probably in your particular market, multiple times. And if you're like me and my family, we go to pretty much the same grocery store, or the same two grocery stores. Anyway, here's the point. Because we are visiting these grocery stores multiple times, we get very familiar with everything is. I know where the cereal is, I know where the meat is, I know where the fruit is, I know where the bread is, I know where the milk is. And I go in there with my list, or I'm not really a list person, but I just go in there, I know what I want, and I pick it up, put it in the basket, and I walk in the front. But in between the front door, the back, and through the cash register, there are a ton of messages going on, but I don't see them. And the reason I don't see these messages that the grocery store is trying to get me to see is that I'm already familiar and I already expect I know where everything is. And so for the grocery store to upgrade and upsell, you know what they have to do? They have to change the aisles in the grocery store. Because when they do that, it messes up my predictable pattern. Okay, so what's the point here? Well, here's the point. Is that your presentation, your initial meeting is the grocery store. And as soon as you sit down and start your presentation or your initial conversation in your first meeting, the clients have already been through that. They've been to that store. They already know what you're going to say. They know how you're going to say it. And there's a predictable pattern of how we say it. What does that look like? Well, it looks like, Mr. Smith, this is who we are, and this is what we do, this is the value we bring, and this is why you should choose us, and this is why we need to give you a proposal, and what keeps you up at night. And then the next competitor comes in, the other grocery store, and what do they say? Well, this is who we are, this is what we do, this is the value we bring, this is why you should choose us, and hey, what keeps you up at night? And what happens is it's not that any of that's wrong, it's just that we're getting tuned out. They don't hear our message anymore. They don't see our hay bale bigger than somebody else's hay bale. So, what do we have to do? The solution is we have just to do more activity in meetings. We have to run the metrics harder. That means do more meetings, do more qualified meetings. That's what we say when they're doing meetings and the activity's up. Well, we need to qualify those meetings. When the other option is just part of option 1 and 2 is improve the effectiveness and proficiency of initial meetings and contract closings. Change the conversation up so that the conversation is different and the experience to the client is different. Create a new talk track and a new wording, and how that comes out that completely surprises the client. What's going to happen is that the client's going to be more open. They're going to see your hay bale much bigger. You're going to break up that particular pattern of, hey, we're just a salesperson, or we're trying to sell you something too. Gee, you know what? You're really a partner problem solver, and I think I could use your help. And at best, what will happen is that they will choose us. Even if we didn't have a proposal that we could generate for them, at least we delivered a good customer experience. So, for my Enterprise Sales Meeting Mastery Program, this is what I've developed over the year. It works. The testimonies are there. It's called the 2-meeting close selling system. Now, before you fall out of your seat, I'm not saying that you can close a deal in 2 meetings. Here's what I am saying, though, is that we need to focus our organization on the 2 most important meetings. That's where our skill set needs to be improved. Our initial meeting with the client, and then our process for delivering proposal. And those are processed in such a way that it delivers an exceptional customer experience and increases contract signings for providing these 2 things. And I call this the 2-meeting close, how to close deals in 2 meetings or less. It also helps focus on what is our sales cycle and how to reduce that sales cycle. Well, why don't we focus on dynamically facilitating great initial meetings, and then coming back and then tying our proposals into those meetings in a way that makes sense for more clients to buy our services. Like I said before, our job is to convince clients to convince themselves to buy our products and services, not run around looking for pain points and just picking up orders. And I know that you've heard this before. And I know there's a lot of methodologies out there, Miller-Hyman, Zig Ziglar, Sales Performance International. And I'm telling you that this process that I created for your industry simply works. It is accepted by many account reps as the best in class. So I'd love to talk to you. If this is of interest to you, you can email me at stepp@steppsydnor.com. You can call me, text me at 903-539-6840. My company is the corporate company is Turnaround Solutions, and my company is called Stepp Sydnor Training Solutions, and me and my staff would love to help you. Here's some of the benefits that our clients are getting from the 2-meeting close process. Is first of all, higher proposal closings. It protects the training investment. It creates a next platform. It creates almost a new language of focusing, how do we get these deals done in 2 meetings, our first meeting, our proposal meeting. Any meeting that happens in between the first one and the second one just supports the one or the other. It's coachable and it's measurable. It's a uniform, creates a common language, as I mentioned, and it delivers a better customer experience, even if they don't buy anything. At least we can get back in there because we delivered a great meeting experience for the client. The benefits for the account reps and the sales engineers is it gives them that hay bale growth, makes their hay bale much bigger than their competitor in the mind of the client. It also creates demand. Why is that? Well, because we're actually looking for both sides of the equation. What are you currently doing? What's the benefit that we see that we can bring you? And out of that conversation, if there's any pain or something that needs to be dealt with, that actually shows up in the meeting. It actually helps the account reps stay in control and close more deals in that control and close. It creates more confidence, so they have more confidence and the power to literally sit down with anybody at an executive level or below, use the same process and deliver an exceptional meeting that is actually surprising to the customer. It'll help leverage the account rep and the sales engineer engagement model, and it helps them able with confidence to have a meaningful conversation with all corporate levels of the executive branch. So I'd love to talk to you. If this is of interest to you, reach out to me. I may send you another email, and we'll get together and simply talk about what are you doing, what am I doing, and see if it makes sense to do business together. I want to thank you very much for listening to this presentation.